There's a pattern I see all the time when brands feel stuck with their content. The actual posts themselves, they look fine. The creative ideas, they make sense. The effort, it's there. But when there is a lacking of a response and kind of engagement just isn't there, and it never really comes, usually that's because there is a lack of clarity around who the content's even for, what the content is meant to do, and really why the content even exists at all. So if you find yourself feeling that your content is just really disappearing into the void, then this episode is for you. And today I'm going to walk you through a simple way to diagnose what's not working and kind of how to fix it in about half an hour. It really is quick. This episode is not half an hour, don't worry. But the homework that I'm going to give you really will take about 30 minutes to complete. And there's no new tools that you need, no big overhaul, really just kind of focusing in on what you can do different and make your content more impactful. This is Marketing on Point. I am Matt Hadley, and I'm excited to dive into this episode and talk all about traction. Welcome to Marketing on Point, the podcast where strategy meets clarity. Every episode, we break down real-world strategies, stories, and impactful tactics to help you grow your brand. Let's dive in. I want you to really think about this thought. Traction comes from alignment. And I know brands create content based on what they want to say in the moment, and the audience responds to content that meets them where they already are. And when those two things don't line up, the content might exist, but it doesn't really move anywhere. It doesn't move the needle because it's not meeting people where they're at. Think about a radio. I like to use this analogy. When you have this old school radio that actually has a dial, you can get close to the station and still hear nothing but static. But as soon as you lock in, it becomes crystal clear. That proximity, even when you're just a little bit off, that proximity, it matters, because if there's not that clear connection, then it doesn't even matter. Like, it's still just noise. And the reason that this concept of clarity and this concept of focus and really making sure that your content is meeting people where they're at is because attention is limited. And, there's some research from the Nelson Norman Group that really shows that users typically read only about 20% of words on any given page, whether that's a website, whether that's a blog. Even if you're, even in your captions, only 20% of the words that are there is any person going to actually probably consume. And so that means that your core idea, the core reason that this piece of content, that this website, that this social media post, that this email exists, has to be clear almost immediately, or it's never going to land. And so when content underperforms, many times a brand or a marketing team, they'll respond by increasing the output. They'll think, oh, well, let's just do more posts, more formats, more volume. And the problem never really is more volume, because honestly, more volume can amplify confusion when that core piece is already unclear. Then if that core piece isn't clear, then just amplifying the volume is going to add more chaos and more confusion, and it's not going to really help your core problem. What audiences respond to, however, is content that gives them a role to play. Sprout Social, they've done some research, and the stat that they have said is that they have seen that 58% of users say audience interaction is the most important thing brands should focus on when it comes to social content. Because people engage with content that invites them into a moment, a thought, a conversation. let's put this into practical terms. If you open up your analytics, if you're not driving, do it right now. Actually, go pause this for just a second. Go to Facebook or Instagram or your email, whether that's MailChimp or Klaviyo or whatever. Pull up your analytics dashboard and look at your last 10 pieces of content that you posted. I don't want you to curate. I don't want you to filter. I just want you to look at the most recent last 10 things. For each one, can you identify its primary purpose? Was it meant to capture attention? Was it meant to educate or build trust? Was it meant to maybe prompt action? A lot of you, I'm going to guess, are going to discover something uncomfortable if you actually take the time to go and look at those last 10 things. Many of those posts that you just reviewed, they're really trying to accomplish too much, because our tendency as marketers and as business owners and entrepreneurs is that we want to try to pack as much information as possible into one moment. But the thing is, when you try to pack, let's say, all three of those things I just asked you about, if you try to accomplish all three of those at once, the result is going to feel unfocused. It's going to feel busy. It might feel thoughtful, yes, but it's not going to actually move the needle, because it's too much for your user and your audience to be able to digest and be able to chew and be able to actually take action on. On the other hand, when content has a singular job and a very clear and focused position, it becomes extremely effective. You can see this very clearly when you stop prioritizing superficial metrics. Likes, those are very passive. Impressions, again, very passive. Where real attraction shows up is through more of the engagement behavior that really requires intent, like saves, shares, meaningful contents, even replies and DMs. That's why most algorithms put more emphasis on those types of engagements rather than just likes or overall reach and impressions. Because the longer that someone consumes your content, the longer that they actually interact with your content, and the more that they're engaging with your content means the longer that they're going to be on a specific platform. The longer they're on a specific platform, the more money that platform can make off of ad campaigns and ad sales, all of that stuff. And so that's why it cycles right back into, you want saves, you want shares, you want meaningful comments, because that's what's going to help you. That's what's going to unlock better placement in the algorithm. That means that your audience is resonating with you more. And if they're resonating with you more, they're resonating with the platform more. And it's just this really cycle where literally, as the saying goes, a tide rises all boats. And so would you look at which of those 10 posts from when you pulled up your analytics a few minutes ago, which of those 10 posts performed the best? And I want you to really, again, look at more of like saves and shares and comments. Look at those metrics rather than likes or just kind of passive impressions, things like that. Once you've done that, once you've looked at those 10 posts and you've really kind of looked at the performance based on those signal points, take a step back and analyze it more strategically. What do you find that is immediately clear about that post? Who were you specifically trying to speak to in that post directly? What emotion did you want to tap into when you were ideating that post or creating that post? What response made it super easy for someone to engage with that post and share that post and comment on that post? Usually when you're able to say, okay, here was the clear intention of the post, here was the clear message of the post, that clarity translates to better positioning and better analytics and better results. Now I want you to do the flip side. Take a post that didn't perform necessarily well and mentally look at it, see what maybe didn't work so well, and then rewrite it or kind of reposition it in your mind with one purpose in mind. Maybe it was a short form video Instagram reel, and it was trying to just do too much? What if you pared it back and it was just only singularly meant to educate? You remove all selling, you remove all kind of promotion, and you're just looking at educating. What if you then go and recreate that piece of content? I want you to try this. Go recreate it with just that singular purpose in mind, and then repost and see if more people engage with it. Yes, it's similar content. You're going to feel like, oh, I've already said this before, but I just want you to see if more people interact with it or more people engage with it. If it's something that was meant to convert, maybe if it was like something that was supposed to be like a hard sell, maybe simplify the explanation if it didn't work so well. How can you get to the core point as fast and as simple as possible? We've all heard the saying, keep it simple, stupid, kiss. So how can you simplify? How can you make sure that you are removing as much friction as possible so that your content can gain traction because the audience understands what they're supposed to do with it? I think another pattern worth noticing is really kind of how that traction builds over time. I think that sustainable growth shows up through repeated engagement from honestly even the same people. So you might notice that you kind of have this core group of people. You can always count on these people engaging, and if they're constantly engaging, then more people are going to, throughout time, they're going to start engaging too. That consistency matters. And honestly, that consistency matters even more than occasional spikes sometimes. Sprout Social, they did a report where they found that 73% of consumers say that they'll purchase from a competitor if a brand doesn't respond to them on social media. And so if you have this community, if you're engaging, if you're sewing into it, then it's more likely that you are going to be able to reach those people where they're at, be able to have a conversation with them. You don't want your lack or your silence to be what shifts them away from you and points them to a competitor. So I think that again, as you're going back through those 10 posts, your audit shouldn't necessarily just focus on performance numbers. It really needs to focus on behavior of who keeps showing up, who keeps responding, who keeps sharing. And then also, are you actually participating in the dialogue? Are you replying to them? Or are you just letting that kind of go unnoticed? I think that those signals, those are going to be what point directly to what resonates the most with your audience. Once you identify what resonates the most, then your job becomes a little bit more simpler. You don't need new ideas every single week. You really just need to be intentional about, how do I repeat this message over and over and over again? How do I create similar themes off of this content that's working? How do I kind of recreate this familiar format in a fresh and new way? It's a consistent emotional core message that you are bringing on in different perspectives. The brands that grow steadily do that well. They recognize what works and they build around it. So I mentioned towards the beginning of this episode, a 30-minute fix. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to carve out 30 minutes, and I want you to take the first 10 minutes. Just again, what I mentioned towards the beginning. Take that first 10 minutes, review your last 10 posts. And then once you've reviewed those last 10 posts, spend the next 10 minutes identifying what worked or what didn't work and why. Did it work because it spoke to your core audience in a very focused and intentional way? Did it not work because it was trying to do too much all at once? Finally, take the next 10 minutes and rewrite one upcoming post with a single clear purpose. So maybe look at your content calendar, see what's coming up, and just take a look at one of those upcoming posts and rewrite it. Again, super focused. Who are you talking to? What is the action you want? What is kind of the one singular thing that you're trying to accomplish in that post? And how can you simplify it to take as much friction away as possible? If you're finding that your content hasn't been gaining traction, I don't want you to assume that nothing is broken, because most of the time it's not a huge problem. It's not a huge, like, the well is just not bringing up water. It's more so that you're just misaligned a little bit, and that you just need to refocus, recalibrate, and find a better way to speak to that audience. In the next episode, I want to zoom out a little bit, and I want to talk about turning kind of individual ideas individual ideas more into campaigns. And I think because what you will notice as you're doing this audit is that once you kind of have that focused message, you have that core message, then you could start to turn that into kind of campaign ideas. You can start to turn that into more of a focused effort rather than starting from scratch over and over and over again. That's going to build momentum instead of just disappearing or kind of restarting day after day. So that's all I have for you today. Traction, I think if you're going to kind of take one key takeaway from this, I want you to take away this. Traction isn't about chasing attention. It's about earning it consistently. Hey, I want to thank you so much for listening to Marketing on Point, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thanks for listening to Marketing on Point. This podcast is all about helping you show up with clarity, connect with the right audience, and build a brand that actually grows. It's brought to you by Wander Creative, your full service partner for strategy, content, and execution that moves people. If this episode helped you think differently, do us a favor, subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave a quick review. It helps more people discover the show and build brands that actually make an impact. We'll see you next time.